Well, UTSA got to 10-2, but guess what? It had to be the largest point deficit in school history. And if you notice to my right here, it's finally happened. UTSA is ranked in the top 25. Thank you, Associated Press, because we did not need to see another sequel of the Santa Claus. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Slasher U. I'm your host, Christian Ryle, here with my handy dandy co-host here, Steve Feck. And Steve, looking good, looking pretty dapper, my friend. I see that that's coming off nice and easy here with a UTSA ranking.
Yeah, well, unlike you, I mean, who has a real manly beard. I mean, mine could probably come up. I should have just put Nair on my face probably and done it that way. But, I mean, I'll tighten it up, before our later shows. But this is my nice. This is my new clean shaven, celebratory shape.
It looks good.
It was a close shave on Saturday.
Yes. Might I add the closest shave in program history, the largest deficit in school history for UTSA, 24 points that they had to overcome to get to 10-2 to keep themselves in a possible NY6 bowl. We've heard it from Coach Traylor. There's a possibility that the Cotton Bowl is still surrounding the possibilities. Wouldn't that be fantastic? But let's dig into this game. Before we really dive into the stats, I was looking at the ESPN app and just looking at stats and trying to understand the game a little more after, watching it. You get the funness of watching the game and really, the cardiac runners are back. Okay. They didn't have to come back. I hope they stay away for the immediate future in the Conference USA game and the bowl game. However, they did return, and 34-31 was the final. Steve, in the middle of the second quarter, when UTEP was up 24-0, the win probability, according to ESPN, was 85.8% for UTEP. That is insane. That is obviously the largest deficit UTSA has ever had to see, as they've come back and had the nicest comeback in school history. I can't say that enough. Frank Harris, I mean, what else can you say about this guy? I feel like we've said everything and talked about how well that this guy is and how amazing of a player and a leader he is, and he just finds ways to shock and awe us yet again, Steve.
Yeah, it really was. And you talk about that 24-0 point. It was probably the first time this season that I was legitimately concerned about an outcome of a UTSA football game. But, and then, of course, Frank Harris went off, briefly with an ankle injury. And then you start thinking, oh, my God, not Frank Harris. No, this is just not going to be, it's not meant to be, but then you just took in everything that Frank Harris was exuding, and he wasn't screaming and jumping up and down and yelling. He was sitting there calmly with his teammates, talking to them, normal kind of voice. He was the leader. He was like, hey, look, okay, not the start we want. We got it. We can come back. And that they did. They didn't lead the game until Jared Sackett kicked the game-winning field goal with 3 seconds left. Yeah. So it gives you an idea of how dominant UTEP was. We talked about when we did the preview of the game that I was really impressed watching the first half of UTEP's previous game, but how they came out and they just really controlled, the pace of play. I don't know what their freshman quarterback, Calvin Brownholtz, was on or what he's full of, but they need to bottle it and give it intravenously, to the rest of his teammates, because he was just in the beginning. He just exuded confidence, and that quickly rooted away. But he had 2 perfectly placed touchdown passes. They were running the ball, 341 yards of total offense in the first half for UTEP.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a game for them in many cases.
Oh, absolutely.
And their defense was physical. I mean, really physical. I mean, they sacked Frank Harris twice. He was tough. They were tough on anybody running pass routes. I mean, overall, up until when they rallied there before the beginning of before the end of the first half, it was all UTEP, and it was looking a little grim. But man, momentum swing. It began. Harris hit, Cephas with a 65-yarder, and then there was a 72-yard pick six. by
finally. I believe that's the first pick six of the season for UTSA.
It was. Daedrian, I think his first name, Daedrian Taylor. So that pulled him within 10 going into the locker room. And now suddenly I was kind of relaxing a little bit. I was giving those last longing strokes to my beard, saying, goodness, this is finally going.
Thoughtful.
But, you know, and then second half started, those cameras scanned like I talked about to Harris sitting with his teammates before the second half started. And from that moment on, I'm like, this is going to happen somehow. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen somehow. And Christian, I mean, thank our lucky stars that it did. You know, undefeated in conference play. They now go to host the championships game, Cotton Bowl. I think I may actually weep. So I shaved on this show. I may have to weep when they announce the Cotton Bowl thing, because I've never been captivated by a college sports program quite the way I have as with UTSA. I mean, this has been a special season. The UTSA football team as a whole and the fan base in the aggregate helped me fall back in love with college football like when I was a kid.
No, I'm with you 100%. Really enjoying our time covering this, and I don't see this changing anytime soon here at Slasher U. Getting back to the game real quick, Frank Harris, 16 for 22, 382 and 3 touchdowns, but on the rushing side, only 14 yards. Barnes led the team in rushing with only 55 yards. UTSA struggled on the ground there. That wasn't the case for UTEP. UTEP looked good on both sides of the ball. Obviously, we know that was mostly in the first half, but what does that need to get fixed? What needs to get fixed in that aspect going into the Conference USA game, which we will preview later this week against North Texas?
You know, they kept referring to during the broadcast, and I saw it in a couple of interviews, you know, Coach Traylor saying that he was afraid they just wouldn't come out really ready for this game. And that's not like they were lollygagging it or any of that. Sometimes you just come out and something doesn't feel right. And UTEP had a lot to play for. They were playing, you know, for bowl eligibility. Would have been the first time in, I think, 15 years that they would have gone to a bowl in back-to-back years. UTEP's, excuse me, done a great job rejuvenating that program. And, you know, I mean, in some ways, thank God, you know, UTSA is going to the American next year, because UTEP's going to cause problems.
Yeah, that's true. I'm excited to see what UTEP does next year. I think that they keep the gas going. They're not going to let up the brakes, and we'll see them in a bowl next year. 5-7, probably the best 5-7 team in the nation. What a heartbreaking loss for them. Just, I mean, honestly, seconds away from being bowl eligible. I mean, that is not hyperbole. That is legit. 34-31, the final here. UTSA scoring the last 20 points at this game to get the victory. They go undefeated in Conference USA play. Again, 10-2. They finally made it. We've been talking about it for weeks. The path to 10-2 was quite clear. It was a little cloudy towards the end. The fog kind of rolled in, but they found a way to get through it. We know that what is next. And I know across social media that's already chiming. It's already ready to go on both sides here. You got North Texas taking on UTSA, 7:30 Eastern time on Friday night, CBS Sports Network. UTSA is an 8.5-point favorite to start this one off. I like that. That's what I like to see. If we look at the game that they played on October 22nd, UTSA won that game 31-27. We all know that game way too well. That was a very close game. That was a very good game. But we know what they've done since then. We know what they've done in that overtime game against UAB, what they've done against Rice and La Tech, and then obviously this comeback win against UTEP. I think that this team looks really good. We're going to break down this preview even more. We're going to make sure Steve is nice and clean shaved, ready for that preview. Maybe you take a foil to it so it's ready to go. But yeah, Steve, I'm excited. If anything, the last few weeks of these blowouts was fantastic, right? It showed that UTSA belonged in the top 25. They had to get another close game. The last close game they had was North Texas, other than this past weekend. They took care of it. Well, I guess the UAB game too, that went in overtime. That's a close game. But they took care of the job. We see them in the AP top 25. I'm excited to see if we're going to see them in the college football playoff rankings. We better see them. All right. Other than that, I'm looking forward to previewing this Conference USA game and ecstatic. I cannot wait for Friday night. Let us know in the comments what you think about this game. Were you on the edge of your seats? The cardiac runners rise again. Okay, we don't need that to happen in this next one. And then let us know your comments. Let us know some of the smack talk that's already going on social medias between these two teams, because you know it's already happening. Hit us up, and while you're there, hit like and subscribe. Shout out to all the UTSA fans for helping us out, especially Meep Meep Nation, who's really been shouting us out lately at all. So thank you so much.
Yes.
And as always, thank you for watching Slasher U.